Russia can't get enough of the UFC lately, and neither can we get enough of Russia showing us how versatile it is. The latest of the Russians to join the UFC, however, is a 3-foot, 3-inch tall social media sensation, Mr. Hasbulla Magomedov. Let's squeeze out the juiciest bits about our little addition, in size, and his imminent entry into the octagon. Firstly, Hasbulla is ready to dominate the ring. Although he won't be competing in the octagon like his elder countryman Khabib, he'll play a significant part in the UFC nevertheless. Hasbulla reportedly signed a 5-year contract with the company, as reported by MMA journalist Igor Lazorin. On Instagram, Lazorin broke the news, writing, "With a 5-year deal in hand, Hasbulla will be representing the UFC in contests and interviews for the foreseeable future." Secondly, Dana White is a huge fan of the teen. When UFC President Dana White met Hasbulla at UFC 267 in Abu Dhabi in October, he became a huge fan of the little dude. Hasbulla can actually use this ever-expanding fame to his advantage, and utilize it to his advantage when promoting future fights. This little story of admiration between White and Hasbulla started when the UFC president met with Hasbulla back in Dubai and made a video of the two hanging out, and ending with White joking that "I'm going to take this little guy with me." Surprisingly enough, White's Instagram blew up shortly after the live session because people were actually looking forward to having the 3-foot chipmunk ride White's shoulders all the way back. White went on to say, "I can say with confidence that 6.4 million people saw the video and that I have 6.7 million Instagram followers. Just how f***ed up is that?" Moving on, Hasbulla apparently shares a lot of similarities with Khabib. Apart from being called a mini Khabib, Hasbulla has a lot more going on that is strikingly similar to the bear fighting champion of the UFC. With a history of viral success and an ongoing battle with Conor McGregor, Hasbulla is presently making headlines. The two started out with their online clash when Hasbulla, hilariously so, named his pet chicken after the Notorious. In reaction, McGregor has tweeted multiple images mocking Hasbulla and claimed he'd love to punt the 3-foot 4-inch star over a goalpost. Conor loves talking smack, and we think he's met his match after all. Khabib was more of a game-focused person with few words and more punches, but Hasbulla seems to be in for all the trash talk, and we're loving the tussle these guys are having from time to time. Next, some insight into Hasbulla and his skyrocketing rise to fame. Hasbulla Magomedov is a Russian social media influencer from Dagestan who's gathered almost 2 million Instagram followers with his practical jokes, parody videos, and antics. He often appears in popular Instagram and TikTok videos practicing and acting as a sparring partner with MMA fighters, most notably with Ultimate Fighting Championship UFC champion and fellow Dagestani Khabib Nurmagomedov. The two share a unique bond that it's even cuter even if the bigger of the two playfully throws around Hasbulla. We just can't take the two that seriously. He's known to stir up trouble, and Burak Özdemir, a well-known Turkish chef and social media influencer, was made the target of his practical jokes. Even Logan Paul was called out for a fight over his NFT. Hasbulla, who seems to be a chubby teenager, is really 18 years old, or 19 years old depending on which version you believe on social media. Although Hasbulla is just approximately 3'3" and seems to be like a tiny child, he's actually the newest social media phenomenon. Moving on, what makes Hasbulla tick? A search for Hasbulla videos reveals him having fun with a monkey, living it up with the Burj Khalifa, and hitting MMA fighters twice his size before fleeing for his life, confidently riding on Khabib's shoulders, and not to mention kicking his arch nemesis Abdu Rozik in the shins. There have been requests for a Hasbulla versus Abdu Rozik bout after the two collided following a big UFC fight in Las Vegas and shin kicked each other during an interview. Oh, by the way, Abdu Rozik is about the same height as Hasbulla, but where Hasbulla is rowdier in his antics, Rozik prefers to look deeper and show he's the saner one between the two. But who cares, honestly? Just get these two munchkins inside a ring. Next up, Lionel Messi and Hasbulla share the same condition. Both Messi and Hasbulla have a rare genetic condition that basically messes up or stunts their growth factor. This is prominently known as the growth hormone deficiency. Messi had the same thing in his early days, and since his family couldn't afford the treatment to inject him with growth hormones, he fought through those days by playing football. Barcelona recognized Messi's extraordinary athletic abilities and offered to pay for his treatment, while also picking up the young superstar to help him become the sensation he is today. Hasbulla has the same thing, and now with all the fame and money pouring in, we wonder if he can go through the same treatment. He's still a late teen, so there might be room for growth still if someone acts fast, but sadly Hasbulla has become an icon because of his condition, so getting that to change might not be what the Russian wants. Time will tell. Now, moving on to other news. There's lots of new blood pouring into the UFC these days. If it isn't fighting, then it's definitely drama, and with the public loving every moment of it, either way, the fighters won't stop feeding it to them. And there's other news circulating in the UFC. Let's give a kiddie seat to our 3-foot macho boy for now and get into what else is simmering and cooking inside and outside the octagon. First up, former UFC fighter passes away. Elias Theodrew, a charismatic mixed martial artist who campaigned successfully for the right to use medical marijuana as an athlete, has died. He was 34. His publicist, Jess Morin, confirmed the former UFC fighter died Sunday in Toronto of liver cancer. Theodrew, from Mississauga, Ontario, was an athlete, actor, model, stuntman, dancer, TV pitchman, Harlequin romance cover model, and a huge cannabis advocate. Sadly, Elias had a lot to fight left in him. He never stopped moving, kicking at his opponent, or clinging to the rail to hold him off if necessary. At a Colorado Combat Club event in December of last year, he defeated Brian Baker. He had a professional record of 19-3, including 6 victories in his past 7 matches. Theodrew has fought for years to allow athletes to use medical marijuana, and he was finally successful in getting an exception for the marijuana he needed to treat the neuropathic pain in both of his arms. Next, news conference canceled as fights breaks out backstage. A number of fights broke out backstage among competitors and their crews on Thursday, canceling the UFC 279 press conference at MGM Grand Garden Arena. Dana White, president of the UFC, tried to keep the press conference moving by introducing each of the 6 competitors 2 at a time, 1 for each upcoming bout. White canceled the pay-per-view after both Kevin Holland and Daniel Rodriguez addressed the media and the crowd about their fight. When asked who begins the fight, White pointed the finger at Khamzat Chimaev and Holland, who aren't facing each other this Saturday night at UFC 279. White claims that all of the bouts on the fight night could go on as planned and that no boxers needed medical care. It was a total White remarked. White claims that a few water bottles were used to strike Gosson in the head and that he was also on the receiving end of slaps and kicks. Tiki saved us from certain disaster, White added. Even though he wasn't a team member, Tiki took a couple for the team. White promised tighter security at future UFC press conference and improved preparation for Friday's weigh-ins and Saturday night's fights. White has said categorically that there will be 0 repercussions for any of the employees. And finally, Khamzat Chimaev chickens out against one guy. Khamzat Chimaev's goal is to wipe off humanity, but he'd rather not square off against one solo guy. Robert Whittaker, better known by his ring name, Bobby Knuckles, is a former UFC middleweight champion who has an aura that Chimaev wants nothing of. UFC 279's first-round submission, Victor Artem Chimaev, 12-0, said he'd prefer to train with Whittaker than face him, calling the Reaper one of the decent men in the game. Dana White, president of the UFC, has said that it makes sense for Boris to fight at 185 instead of welterweight, suggesting that Khamzat may be permanently moved to middleweight after he missed weight against Nate Diaz. The first name that comes to mind is Whittaker, the top-ranked middleweight in the world, but after seeing Paulo Costa almost get into a fight with Khamzat at the UFC Performance Institute last week, he could be a better choice. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think about Hasbulla joining the big leagues? Are people going too easy on him given him his condition, or will they beat the smack talker to a pulp? Let us know in the comments below. It'd be awesome if you gave this video a thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe for more scrumptious videos like this. See you in the next one.